Sometimes the loudest prayers are the ones no one hears, not even you, because they don't come out of your mouth. They live in your chest, in the tightness, in the ache, in the sigh you let out when no one is looking. They come in the moments when you're curled up in bed, pretending you're fine, while your soul is screaming without a sound. And maybe no one knows, not your friends, not your family. Maybe you don't even know how deep it goes anymore. But God, you want to believe He hears it. You need to believe He hears it. But lately, all you feel is silence. If this speaks to your heart, stay, you're not alone. Take a deep breath, just listen. Let the words sink in. This moment is yours, to feel, to breathe, to be still. You don't need to pretend here. You don't need to fix anything. You don't even need to pray out loud. This isn't a sermon, it's a safe space. So just let go. Breathe. Be here. Because I know how it feels to talk to heaven and hear nothing back. To kneel down and whisper, God, are you even real? And then get up, feeling even more alone than before. I've sat with my hands in my lap, staring at the wall, begging God to just give me something. A sign, a word, a dream, even a feeling. But sometimes nothing comes. And the silence becomes so heavy, you start to wonder if your prayers got lost. If maybe God moved on. If maybe He's tired of you too. That kind of silence, it doesn't just hurt, it shakes your soul. It makes you question everything you've ever believed. But let me ask you something. What if silence isn't absence? What if your quiet cries, your unspoken fears, your exhausted tears are still echoing in heaven? What if God isn't ignoring you, but waiting until the noise inside you settles so you can hear Him in a different way? That's what we're here to explore, together. So please, don't rush this moment. Don't skip to the end. Just be here, with your hurt, with your questions, with whatever little bit of faith you still have left. You're not broken for feeling this way. You're not faithless, you're not alone. And this silence you feel, it doesn't mean He left. It might just mean He's listening more closely than ever. There are things you carry that no one sees, not even the people who love you most, because you've learned how to hide it well. You show up, you smile, you work, you laugh at the right time. You say, I'm good, when someone asks how you're doing. But inside, you're unraveling. And the worst part is, you don't even remember when it started. You just woke up one day, and the weight was already there, like it had always been. You drag yourself through days that feel empty. You check your phone hoping for, what exactly? A text, a distraction, a reason to feel something again. But it never really works. It never fills the ache. Because what you're craving isn't attention, it's peace, and the kind of peace you need. No one around you seems able to give, so you keep praying, in your own way, quietly, desperately, sometimes angrily, and still silence. You start to wonder if your pain is just too ordinary for God, too constant, too repetitive, like He's heard it all before and tuned out. But that thought, it breaks you, because all you've ever wanted was to feel held, to feel like someone sees past the mask, to feel like your soul isn't too complicated, too messy, too broken to be heard. And yet here you are, holding yourself together at 3 a.m., sitting on the bathroom floor with the lights off, trying not to wake anyone, because you don't want to burden them, you don't want to scare them, you don't want to be the problem. So instead, you break in silence. You cry where no one can see, you scream inside your head, and you tell yourself, maybe I'm just too much. But listen to me. That voice, the one that says you're too much, too emotional, too heavy, too broken. That's not God. That's not truth. The truth is, you are human, you are hurting, and that is not a sin. You are not weak because you feel deeply. You are not failing because your faith has been shaken. You are not disqualified from love just because you don't have it all together. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to feel lost. You are allowed to not know what to pray anymore. God doesn't need perfect words. He just needs your honesty. Even if it sounds like this. God, I don't know how to do this anymore. That's enough. That's prayer. So take another breath. Let the pain rise and don't run from it. Because maybe, just maybe, God is already sitting in the middle of it, waiting for you to stop pretending you're okay. And when you do, when you let him see it all, that's when the healing starts. There's a strange kind of war happening inside of you. Not loud, not obvious, but relentless. It's the kind of war where no one's holding weapons. Just doubts. Just memories. Just silence. One minute you're holding on to faith. The next you're questioning if it ever mattered. You hear people talk about God's love, God's plans, God's timing. And something inside you wants to believe them. You used to believe them. But lately, all those promises feel like stories from someone else's life, not yours. Because how do you trust in a plan when every door feels closed? How do you believe in love when you feel completely invisible? How do you keep praying when your prayers feel like shouting into a canyon that only echoes back your fear? The truth is, you've started to drift. You didn't plan to. You didn't wake up and say, today I'll give up. It just happened. A little more distance every day. A little more silence between you and God. Until one day you realized you weren't sure if you even knew him anymore. And that realization, it hits like grief. Because how do you mourn someone who was supposed to never leave? You look around your life and it feels like everyone else is hearing from God. Everyone else is growing, glowing, being blessed. And you're stuck, you're trying, you're tired. And deep down a voice whispers, maybe it's me, maybe I did something wrong, maybe I'm too broken for God now. You replay every failure, every sin, every time you were too tired to pray, every time you walked away, closed your Bible, or let anger take over. You start keeping score, and the scoreboard never looks good. But let me interrupt that voice for a second, because what you're hearing isn't truth, it's shame, it's fear. It's the noise of your wounds, not the voice of your Father, because the God who loves you doesn't keep score like that. He doesn't turn away when you're weak. He doesn't withdraw when you have questions. In fact, he leans in, even closer. But the problem is, you're too busy fighting yourself to feel his presence. So here's what I want you to do, just for a moment. Stop fighting. Let yourself be tired. Let yourself be confused. Let yourself feel everything without editing it. God is not afraid of your confusion. He's not offended by your disappointment. He doesn't walk away when your faith shakes. In fact, it's in this kind of mess, this raw, tangled, painful middle, that his love can finally reach the places you've been hiding. So breathe. You're not failing. You're not forgotten. You're just in the fight. And the fight is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you still care, that somewhere deep inside you're still reaching. And that's all he needs. There's a moment, usually quiet, always unexpected, when something breaks through the fog. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's soft. Maybe it's a verse you haven't read in years that suddenly drifts into your mind. Maybe it's the way sunlight touches the floor just right in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. Maybe it's a song, a whisper, a memory of a time when you did feel close to God. Even if just for a second, and for a breath, you remember. You remember that night when you were falling apart, and somehow you made it through. You remember the peace that showed up when you least deserved it. You remember the way your heart softened after years of being hardened. You remember the stillness, and it hits you. You didn't carry yourself this far. Someone was there. Not always fixing things, not always speaking, but always present. And in that moment, even if it's just a flicker, you feel it again. That small, sacred spark that reminds you, you are not forgotten. You never were. It doesn't solve everything. It doesn't erase the pain. But it cuts through the lie that you've been alone this whole time. You haven't. You're just exhausted. And pain has a way of blinding us to the presence that never left. That moment. It's not an accident. It's not nostalgia. It's God, still speaking, still pursuing, still loving. Even now, even in the silence, even in your mess, because love doesn't always come with lightning. Sometimes it comes with a memory, sometimes it comes with the feeling that someone is still holding your heart, even when your hands let go. This isn't a fairy tale, it's not a quick fix, but it is a reminder that faith isn't about always feeling God, it's about choosing to remember what He already showed you when everything else goes dark. And maybe this memory, this moment, is God's way of saying, I'm still here. Even if you forgot how to see me, even if you stopped looking, I never stopped watching over you. So breathe again. Close your eyes if you need to. Let the memory hold you. Let it soften you. You don't have to run anymore. You don't have to prove anything. Just be still. Just remember. And let that remembering be the beginning of your return. It doesn't happen all at once. Healing rarely does. It comes in slow, quiet layers, like the sun rising behind the clouds, long before you feel its warmth. And maybe right now you're not ready to say, I'm okay. That's fine. That's honest. But you're here. And that matters, because showing up, even if it's broken, even if it's tired, even if all you did was press play on this video, is a kind of faith. It's saying, I'm still searching, I'm not done yet. And that's enough for God to work with. The beautiful thing about Him? He doesn't need perfect. He doesn't need performance. He just needs permission. Permission to meet you right where you are. Without masks, without expectations, without the weight of needing to be strong all the time. So let's stop pretending. Let's stop performing. You thought your faith was failing. It was growing roots. You thought you were lost. You were being led, just not the way you expected. Because the work God does in the dark isn't flashy, it's holy. It's in the way you started breathing again without even noticing, the way you reached for Him even when you didn't believe He'd answer, the way you kept going even when you couldn't feel a thing. That's faith, not the loud kind, not the stage kind, the kind that survives the storm without shouting back at it. So maybe this is where the rebuilding begins, not with fireworks, not with instant change, but with a whisper, I'm still here. And maybe tonight that's all you needed to hear. So breathe again. You've made it through the worst parts. And if you haven't, you will. Because healing is happening even now, even if it's quiet, even if it doesn't feel like it. You're not being punished. You're being held gently, faithfully. Let that be enough for now. You don't need a 5-step plan. You need presence. And presence is here. There comes a moment when you stop looking for the thunder. You stop begging for burning bushes, loud miracles, clear signs in the sky, and instead, you start to notice the quiet things. Like the way your heart didn't break today, even though it almost did. Like the calm you felt for 5 seconds this morning before the chaos returned. Like the fact that somehow you're still standing. That's when it hits you. Maybe God isn't always trying to fix everything. Maybe He's just trying to show you that He's with you in everything. Because the truth that no one tells you when you're drowning, is that God doesn't always rescue you from the storm. Sometimes He sits with you in it, saying nothing, changing nothing, but being everything. We were told that faith feels like fire, but sometimes it feels like quiet. Like peace you didn't earn, like strength you didn't summon, like presence you didn't even ask for. And maybe that's what He's been trying to show you all along, that He was never gone, never silent, never distant. He was just waiting for you to become still enough to recognize Him, because healing doesn't come when everything makes sense. It comes when you stop needing it to. It comes when you start trusting that God is still God, even when you don't feel Him. Even when your prayers sound like silence, even when your worship feels hollow, even when your faith limps instead of runs. That kind of trust, it's deeper than emotion. It's more sacred than certainty. It's the kind of trust that says, I don't need to understand. I just need to stay close. So maybe the silence wasn't punishment. Maybe it was preparation. Maybe the emptiness was making room for something holy, and maybe you didn't need an answer, you just needed presence. And now you see, that was always there. In the quiet, in the tears, in the breathless nights, he was there, not fixing everything, but holding you through everything. And that truth, it doesn't make the pain disappear, but it changes what the pain means. It's no longer proof of abandonment. It becomes a doorway to intimacy, because when you've walked through silence and still believe, that's real faith. And that faith, it moves mountains, not outside of you, but inside. So if you've been waiting for the big sign, the thunderous voice, the supernatural breakthrough, maybe this is it, not a shout, but a whisper. You were never alone. So here we are, still breathing, still holding on. Not because everything is okay, but because somewhere in the depths of you, there's still a flicker of belief, of hope, of trust that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't for nothing. And maybe you're not healed yet. Maybe your heart still hurts when you lay down at night. Maybe your prayers still come out as sighs or not at all. But you're still here. That matters. You didn't quit. You didn't close your heart for good. You didn't stop searching, even if your search looks more like silence than shouting. And in God's eyes, that's faith. The kind that doesn't need to perform. The kind that doesn't chase emotional highs. The kind that keeps walking even when the map is gone and the road feels endless. So breathe one more time. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not broken beyond repair. You are in process, sacred, slow, and unseen, but real and beautiful. And if no one has told you lately, God still delights in you, not in your perfection, not in your strength, but in your presence, in your being. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to fake your strength. You don't need to pray like anyone else. Your tears are prayers. Your breath is praise. Your stillness is worship. So let this moment be enough. Let it wrap around you like a soft light in a dark room. Let it speak what words can't. And if you still feel the ache, if tomorrow brings the same weight, come back. We'll sit together again. No pressure, no expectations, just space to breathe, to feel, to remember. Because healing isn't linear, faith isn't a straight line, but love, real love, never leaves, not even when you do. So maybe don't try to figure it all out tonight. Maybe just let the silence be what it is, a space where God still speaks, softly, gently, faithfully. If this helped you breathe again, come back tomorrow. We walk together.